Alright, and welcome back to our fourth installment in this 5-part video of Chapter 10, where we're dealing with importing data, XML files, and some Power add-ins for Microsoft Excel. In this particular video, we're going to be focusing strictly on XML. XML stands for Extensible Markup Language. An XML file is basically a developed industry standard used for structuring data for a use across various applications, operating systems, hardware, etc. Essentially, an XML file is a readable format of data that can be applied across many different platforms. It enables data to be sent, retrieved, and used between systems that would otherwise be incompatible. And the closest I guess reason or closest justification for the development of this XML is the example that I can think of off the top of my head is the use of a file that's created on a Macintosh or an Apple machine and a file that's created on a Windows-based machine. A lot of times there's some compatibility issues in taking a file made from one to the other due to some of the proprietary markup that's created via the application. So an XML file basically is agnostic to the OS, to the program, and it just basically gives you a standard structure for your data so that you can use it. And we'll take a look at what comprises an XML file. XML is extensible. It basically means it can be expanded as required to include data. When you look at an XML file, there's a couple of things that we want to focus on. Simply, it's a file that's comprised of tags and elements. So a tag is basically a user-defined marker that identifies the beginning or ending of a piece of data. And if any of you have ever worked with web page development dealing with HTML, the markup for XML is very similar to that, in a sense that it uses these HTML-like tags to basically identify the beginning and ending of your data. And then you have the element, which is actually includes the start tag, the end tag, and then your important data that you're going to be manipulating or loading or doing whatever with. So that is the entire encompassing element is an entire encompassing piece of XML that includes your tags as well as the important data in between. We're going to look at how to import XML data into Excel, and we're going to look at how to do some refreshing of data. So before we get into our working with XML data in Excel, I want to kind of take a look at an XML file and kind of show you what we're talking about. So we have this XML file here, and we have these tags that define. In this particular instance, we have a file that deals with employees, and we have our tag here, starting tag, opening tag is department, so this has to deal with employees belonging to a department. So we have an XML tag of department. Again, like I mentioned earlier, if you've seen HTML markup code or tags, they look very similar in that respect. And we have employee, which is again another XML tag that identifies that we're going to be working with data specific to employees. And then we have, again, these elements here. Last name, Smith, ending tag of last name, first name, and then we have a date title. So this gives you kind of the makeup or kind of a purview of what an XML file looks like. So now that we know what an XML file looks like and how it's structured, we can then look at working with an XML file. So we're going to create a new workbook here, and we're going to open an Excel file in there. So I'm going to go to File, I'm going to go to Open, and I'm going to go and find an XML file on my PC. And you'll notice that I have here a number of XML files. So I'm going to open up People and give me a there it is. Okay, it is able to read it even though I have open. So I have an XML, open XML dialog box. It's going to ask me how I want to open up this file. I want to open it as a read-only workbook, source task pane, or just an XML table. I'm going to open it as an XML table. And it says that it doesn't refer to a specific schema, so Excel will create a schema based off the XML source data. So it's going to do a lot of the work for you. So we have, as I mentioned here in our file, we have last name, first name, and date hired. And so it's created a table based off of this information in Excel and created a table in that regard. So again, like we've seen in some of our previous chapters in dealing with tables and other Excel elements, this is how you import a Microsoft an XML file into Microsoft Excel. Gives you the ability again to go in here and just kind of work with and manipulate the data as you need to. But one thing I do want to show is we have a lot of different employees in here. And let's say we want to go ahead and add another employee, so we can modify our file here to include our new employee. So our new employee is James DiMaggio, a very popular name I'm sure everybody is familiar with. I'm going to put in a date hired, and we're going to go ahead and click File and Save. I'm going to go ahead and close my file for now. And you notice that we have in our XML file, we have the ability to go in and kind of refresh our data. So I'm going to go in here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into connections. We've seen this in previous video where you're dealing with connections that you have to a specific database. So in this particular instance here, we can see what kind of connection we have to this particular file. And again, it shows you the sheet, the name, we have where we're applying the information. Now we have a connection established. We click the refresh all. What we'll notice here, part of this connection, you should see that our file should now refresh to include our newly created visual here. So we have connection properties. And we want to click refresh all. So under the design, since we are working with the table, apologize here, I got off on the wrong tab. So based off of our design tab, we want to go in, since we created a table, we go in and click the refresh button under the design tab, and we notice that our James DiMaggio with the new hire date, the reference hire date has now been added. So there's a real-time example of how you get an updated XML file that you reference, maybe on a file share, maybe on your local machine, maybe a file that you get that you pull down periodically, and by creating this, managing this connection with Excel through the XML file, you're able to go ahead and refresh that data, and then again manipulate that information as required. So there's just a quick way to import information using an XML file format, and to manage that connection and refresh the data. So again, if you have any questions,